So practicing with the metronome can be quite scary. I've had nightmares about it. It's this incessant ticking that just keeps going, you have to keep up with. And it's intimidating at first, but playing with the metronome can be very beneficial. We practiced with the metronome when we were practicing our staccato, when we were stopping our bow. It helps us to stay in time. It helps us to speed up the music uniformly. We have a tendency to rush the spots that we're very familiar with, but slow down in the spots that we second guess ourselves. So we want to even that out. And it also points out our flaws, which is something that we usually avoid, but when you're playing with your teacher and they're just tapping their foot, somebody like me is very forgiving. I like to tap, and we progress the piece together. But this, when you're practicing with a metronome, keeps you honest, keeps you true to the beat so that you can extend how far you go with it. There are tons of different metronomes. You can use one from YouTube, find one online, use a keyboard. I use an app, my handy dandy phone. It's not great to have a phone in the practice room, but I use it for the tuner, and it is tied to me for my metronome. I use an app. My app just says metronome. It's a free app from the Google store, from the Play Store. And I chose this app because of a few options. So we have a beautiful turn dial where we can set how fast we want to go. We can tap it out. And then we can tap. So if you sing your piece, just goes bum ba-dum 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 bum ba-dum 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 bum. I can see I was singing about 97. And so about, we want it to be more precise, so let's start it at 95 kind of thing. When I'm using my app, my violin's in my face. It's connected to my jaw, so all of that sound is vibrating into my head, and it makes it really hard to hear my metronome. So I use earbuds. It's kind of a bummer to have only one ear available for my violin. I typically put it in my right ear and have my left ear open to hear my instrument. But it will still kind of mess with your perception of the sound. So if you have a loud enough speaker, that will be beneficial as well so that you can hear the full quality of the sound. It helps to work with little tiny spots and then have a bigger speaker to work with that. I start my students with open strings when starting with a metronome so that we don't have fingers to worry about. We can just simply work with the bow. That's highly underrated, typically. You'll hear professionals, do open strings, do open strings, do open strings. And you're like, okay, what is that open string going to do for me? It's allowing you to know how much time you have, gives you time to subdivide and really take the time to listen to your tone and your quality. So a really great place to start for whatever piece that you're working on as a beginner is something slower. We don't want to feel rushed. When we feel rushed, we often second guess ourselves, we stumble over ourselves, and we want this to be relaxing. As soon as we start tensing up, everything tenses up, our fingers, our bow, everything. So we want to stay nice and relaxed. So going through, to start, you want to start at 60. And the reason I love this app so much is because a lot of apps will give you that initial downbeat, and I can't stand it because I will use that for 4, 4, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, it doesn't matter. I use this app and I don't change anything other than the tempo setting. I have all of my beats to the same wood block, and you can have it however you want if it helps you stay on track. But let's try this out so that we're doing just open bow so that we can get used to it. We're going to start with whole notes. And we're just long bows. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It seems agonizing to play at this speed initially, but once we start getting smaller and smaller increments for our note values, it will seem very quickly, especially if you're new to this. So take your time, watch that you have a very even sound, that your bow is not bouncing. Watch how much pressure you're placing on your bow and your speed, and that it's pretty uniform throughout. So let's just do a few whole notes, so 4 beats each. Ready, we're going to do open D. Ready, go. Good. Now let's switch over to half notes. That's just 2 beats each. So I'm going to speed up my bow a little bit more. And feel free to air bow. It's hard for me to air bow because I have I'm in the basement. So 1, 2, da. So let's do that on open A. I'm going to do a few of those. Ready, go. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Again. So that's pretty simple. Now let's do our quarter notes. Quarter notes, just 1 beat each. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're not doing staccato, so we want to keep it nice and smooth. Let's do open D again. Ready, go. That 60 beats per minute, it's one beat every second, is a little bit too much space in between. There's a lot of space. 2, 3, 4. I like to subdivide. I always subdivide. So I'm counting 8th notes in my head. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and even when I'm doing my quarter notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's try that again. Just open strings, open A, and just quarter notes. Ready, go. 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Good. Now we're going to switch over to 8th notes. And 8th notes can be practiced at different points on the bow. If you're doing the lower half, if you're doing the upper half, or if you're doing the middle third or middle quarter, that would be a little bit harder to do. And I'm still in my head 1 and 2 and counting those. So half bows or middle in the middle. Ready and go and. Good. Next is 16th notes. 16th notes, some of you may be used to. We're dividing these in half. So my 16th notes, the syllables that I use for 16th notes, 1 E and A. And being able to verbalize your music is a very good skill to have. If you can say it, you can play it. I require all of my students, including my own children, to write out their rhythms and to say them. It seems monotonous sometimes, but when you get in the habit of doing it, it becomes a very good habit that continues great progression. It takes away, it allows you to not second guess yourself because you are very comfortable with those rhythms, with verbalizing them. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a. So let's go with that again. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 and a. So always feel your beat before you play it. Say it to yourself, 1 E and a, 2 E and 3 E and a, 4. And when I'm doing this, I'm doing little tiny goes. Wrist is another video, so we're not going to talk about wrist right now. We're just going to talk about working with that metronome. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and 1 E and a, 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and a. So let's do an open A for that. I'm going to do mid bow. 1, 2, ready, and go, and So then after you get really comfortable practicing with open strings, then we switch over to something we're also very comfortable with, that we don't have to think about. And a great thing to practice with are scales. Scales are underrated too by a lot of beginners. They are very beneficial to get the muscle memory down of our strings, and great to do bow work with. So go through this whole process again with the metronome. 60 is a great place to start. Start at your whole notes. So let's start with D major, and we're going to do whole notes for D major. Yes, we're going to go through all of this. 2, ready, go. Good. Now let's do that same scale in half notes. 1, 2, ready, go. Good. So as you continue on, you can double those half notes. D, D. Feel comfortable with what you're doing. All right, let's do quarter notes. We're going to do quarter notes 2 different ways. Let's do quarter notes 2 each. We're going to do D, D, E, E, F, F, G, G. We're going to play twice. And then the second time we play, we're going to play 1 quarter note each. So double notes, D major. 1, 2, ready, go. Let's do our D major scale with 1 quarter note each. Ready, go. Good, and you can continue down if you wish. I encourage you to continue back down the scale, or do 2 or 3 octaves with this. The next we're going to do 8th notes, so let's double up those 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 each. And I'm going to do this mid-bow. 1 and 2 and ready and go and. Good. Now let's do 1/8 note each. 1 and 2 and ready and go and. Wonderful. Now we have 16th notes. So let's do 1 beat of 16th notes for each note. D, 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 E, 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 F, F, like that. 1, 2, ready, and go, and Good. Now let's do 1 each. 1 and 2 and ready, go, and very quickly. What I do when I'm practicing with a metronome is I always write down my goals, what speed that I would like to achieve, and every time I practice and I increase my speed, I will write it down either on a sticky note, on the sheet of music, or in my practice log. Having a practice log helps you a ton because it sets your goals out in front of you, and you can easily see the progress that you've made or the progress that you want to make. And when you have your goals written down, when you are able to achieve those little tiny things, always celebrate the little victories. It encourages you to do more and pushes you to really enjoy pushing yourself and challenging. This is supposed to be a rewarding experience, a relaxing, rewarding experience. So if we can take that stress down, especially with that metronome, it's very beneficial to practice with and can be enjoyable once you get used to it. Good luck.